August or first meeting in November. And at the meeting last night, after discussion, it was determined that we would consider the options that were laid out in that memo, and I would see the way to give some direction to city staff as to how to proceed with the lawsuit that has been filed by Melching versus the cities.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Honor. At least in order for us to begin discussion, and I know there are members of the public who wish to speak to this topic, I would move that we file notice that we do not intend to defend the suit, and that we direct city staff and the city attorney to negotiate a settlement with the
Do I have a second so that we can get this out of the floor for discussion? Support. It's been moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Mr. Turnquist, that we select our response as on A, the city can agree with Melching's position that the administrative institution has no legal binding effect. Discussion.
Thank you. I think we understand, based on the vote that was taken, how people feel. And whether people who come here week after week believe us or not, we aren't all that far apart as far as the outcome that we're all trying to achieve. However, spending money that we don't have on a lawsuit, which on the face of it, based on our legal advice and my own research on the matter, it really is not defensible in a meaningful way. It does not seem particularly practical to me, given our budget situation. So, to me, this would address the issue of the lawsuit and allow us to go back to negotiating a change of use for that site, which is what the process we were involved in was before, because no one in this community wants to see heavy industry on the lake. And speaking for myself and based on our conversations on this issue over the past over a year now, I don't believe there's anybody on this dais or at City Hall who wants to see heavy industry on the lake. And that's what we're trying to negotiate with the property owner. By responding as opposed to waiting for a default judgment, I believe this would allow other interested parties, whether for the plaintiff or defense, to file an amicus brief and ask to be made a party to the suit if they so choose. So that avenue is open. So I think that this, in the limited ranges of options that are actually available to us, allows us to respond, allows us to negotiate a settlement in line with what the wishes of the people have been demonstrated through the voting process, while respecting the fact that we have limited resources with which to fight a lawsuit, that our risk management agency has indicated they will not cover through our insurance, and we will be paying the full cost for that location. Thank you.
Just to make sure, now we're supporting, we had two options, A and B. We're supporting A.
Correct.
I think that the work that Mr. Page and his group have done, Occupy Muskegon, and other groups have really, raised it that Mr. Melching has to receive a message. I am not one to believe that by vote we can change the zoning of a person's property. That's just the way I feel. He has been quoted often that he is talking about mixed usage, other ways of using it. I don't think, I'm still optimistic enough that once all the rubble is out of there, we're getting impatient on that, and when it looks better, it's going to be more marketable. to those who may have some interest in the property. Right now, every day when you drive by, even though I think it's an improvement from the old buildings being down, you get tired of looking at the piles. And as one lady said last night, it's undesirable to see that and what's happened to the people there. And that's something that we can't answer. I can't answer. I do feel that we as a city, our administration, needs to be more actively involved, and I'm saying this without complete knowledge, of meeting with Mr. Melching and his people more often and get updates from him. Right now, I just seen that, I feel that he's kind of walked away from the situation. We haven't seen him. I tried to see him 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he had no interest. But I think we have to build that relationship to get that property to become what we really want. We want some public access to that property, but we as city people also want to see income. Marine waterfront could supply that. There's one thing in the marine waterfront, correct me, Tim, would allow heavy boat repair and that type of thing, so we wouldn't be getting away from all of the noise and the congestion and everything. And I think these things have to be worked out through the city, and I think we have to build up that relationship with him and on a regular basis. There's big concern about the pollution in the water, the wells and everything else. Again, I think he is committed and he has been working with the DEQ, and I have to take that as at his word that that's happening. And I don't think that the DEQ is going to allow groundwater or contaminants to go into the lake, which is our major concern. Another concern is some people have complained about particles and dust and everything, causing them to have nasal problems and so forth. That could well be. I'm not denying that. But I just think that we have to let this thing take its course. He's not been successful in marketing that property for what we saw the first plan being. But I think it has so much potential to provide both for us that I would agree that this is the way to go.
Any other input from I have 2 requests that I will recognize prior to voting on this. Bill Larson.
Bill Larson, 1555 Randolph in Glenside. It didn't surprise me that Larry made that motion. And from what I've seen is you're being bludgeoned with this idea that it's all about money. It's not all about money, it's to do the right thing. The other thing is that I find interesting that there 2 commissioners didn't even feel necessary to show up at a meeting of this importance, and that bothers me also.
One is out of town for a child's wedding.
I read through this thing 4 or 5 times today, and to me, B was the way to go about it. And I'm surprised that this motion is even being made. The funny thing is when we vote tonight, when you folks vote, it's going to be on the most number of votes. When you were elected on the biggest number of votes to be elected. We have the most number of votes, and you choose to ignore it, to me, is the sad commentary on all the work that the people did and the message that they tried to send. And I thank you for letting me have this time to speak.
Yay.
Larry Page.
ladies and gentlemen. My name is Larry Page. I live at 3328 Wilcox Avenue in Bluffton neighborhood. Mr. Spataro's motion is interesting. One part of me says that's a pretty good idea, Mr. Spataro. It doesn't spend any money of the city, and I know you're concerned about the finances. And I would be willing to be part of that if, along with that motion, when a motion that said that we would then, that would take care of the lawsuit issue. If we went to part A of the motion of the movement after the petition, and we directed the city to take the steps to take this process through the zoning process. That's what I asked for from the first day that I approached this dais. I asked the city commission to please let's take this through the process. Let's get this rezoned. It's an important issue. Didn't get any response. Told the city commission, and I want to, this sort of gets at a statement that our attorney made, and was in the minutes, that this started out as an initiatory or as an advisory petition, and ended up after the vote to be more of a this is what we want, a legal petition. I drafted that petition. I had that petition drafted. I'm not going to take credit for the wording, but I had that petition drafted. And at no point in time did I think of this as an advisory-only petition. That was never in my mind. It said that proponents talk about it as being an advisory commission. I've been here at almost every meeting. I never heard anybody speak of it as, this is an advisory petition. This petition to me was drafted to carry the full force of law, and I mentioned that the last time I spoke to you folks. This was never intended to be an advisory petition. There was an advisory petition that was presented to the city commission and the mayor. This is a separate petition from that. This initiatory petition was there to put it on the ballot and to let people vote, and so that the commission would then take the direction of the people and take whatever steps are necessary to bring it to its fruition, which is a change of zoning, as the petition said, as 6,901 people voted to change this zoning map from I-2 to the waterfront marine. It was very clear. I like to think it's one of the few, it's the only one that passed because it was very clear. And no place did it say, we wish that you would consider. We hope that you would think about, or that, shall it be considered, changed, is the wording. Right? So, Mr. Spataro, I would, and not that you need my second, but I would support your motion if, along with that motion, you would amend that motion and say, and direct the city to take the steps necessary to rezone this property. Let's bring it through the process. I have no problem with that. I'd like to see how the various players in that process would vote, yay or nay on this, right? So let's go with it. Let's take it through the process. I've said that before. I said that day one. Let's take it through the process. Thank you.
Yay.
Vice Mayor?
Is there any other members of the public who wish to speak? I mean, who signed out?
No.
Okay. A couple issues were raised that I think should be addressed. Certainly we're all voter conscious here. One, this is not the first initiatory petition in which I've been involved as either a resident of the city, as an active participant, or as an elected member of this commission. And sometimes when we have a referendum on an issue, and what comes to mind initially is the referendum regarding a casino. We had a vote on that, there was a majority of the voters of the city of Muskegon who were in favor of that. We took steps within our power as a city commission to facilitate their wishes. But state and federal law do not give us the final say in that matter. And we don't have a casino. And neither does Report or anybody else who's trying to get a casino in Michigan, because it's not just a local issue. Now, with this particular initiative, the wishes of the people have been made clear. Now, we can file a lawsuit and potentially lose and spend, and just filing this is going to cost significant amounts of money. I mean, people don't understand. Just this motion is not free for us to do. There is no free option once that lawsuit is filed. Sometimes I think there's this notion that these things don't cost money, and that doesn't take resources away from keeping a park up or paying for a police officer, say. But there is more than one way to address a zoning issue. One way would be for us to go to staff-initiated process and go through an involuntary process and end up with a legal non-conforming use and an angry property owner who might do something he can legally do under state law, regardless of what the zoning may be changed to, that none of us in this community like. Or we can pursue what we have been pursuing, which is a negotiated zone change with this property owner, so that at the end of the day, that is a cooperative result, something that he has indicated to us at the Planning Commission, to individual commissioners, and to city staff, that he is willing to do. And that is the way to achieve the rezoning that the people have requested of us. That is not confrontational and is more likely to have a successful outcome. So my motion is not inconsistent with that vote in the sense that we would pursue and continue to pursue a negotiated, whether it be a plan unit development or ultimately a straight-up zone change, with the cooperation of this property owner, so that we don't end up in a situation where he puts something on that site that no one here wants, which legally right now he could do, even if that zoning had been changed back in 2000. So that's why I made the motion that I did, and that's why I do believe it is consistent with the message we received from the voters of this community in last month's election. Thank you.
Boo.
May I ask a question of Mr. Melching? Is that? You talk about wording in the item A, if it was amended, and Mr. Spataro talked about a negotiated conclusion. Is that what you're looking for? You're looking for something stronger than that? Can we do that through the Planning Commission? What's your feelings on that, sir?
Well, speaking from one of 6,901 votes, I'm the one. Right? I'm not speaking, I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for this group because I can't.
But I think you're representative of that group.
The lawsuit, the ballot initiative said, should it be changed? Right? People said, yes, it should be changed. Right? The process, the way that it's changed was not stipulated. Right? One way that I see that it could be changed is to take it through the process through directing the city staff and that whole zoning change process. That's one way that it could be done. That's the way that would be the most transparent, if you will. We would have public meetings. We would have notification of people that live near there. We would know when meetings were going to be made. We could come and speak and make our voices heard. Negotiating with Mr. Melching, well, while it may be that it might be successful is certainly not transparent. And that's the concern of a lot of people that I've talked to, that very little is transparent. Let me give you an example. I'm one of those people that have over and over asked for, why wasn't this zoning changed back in August of 2009? Never have I gotten any response or any good answer to that. Last night I started to hear, well, it wouldn't make any difference. If we changed it back in 2009, then SD Warren would sue us. If we change it now, then Melching might sue us. That tells me that we can never change this zoning, right? The city, I've heard it from commission, I've heard it from staff. We're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't, right? We can't change this zoning, right? Until we can find somebody, some benevolent property owner at some point down the road that'll be willing to let us, he will give us his blessing to change the zoning. Well, I think that's happened too much in the city of Muskegon. I think that we've put our fortunes with people that have come into our city and basically told us how to run things, right? And I think that 6,901 people are tired of that and said, let's take control of the city. Let's us do it the way we want to do it. And if that generates some unpleasantries, so be it. But given that, I'm certainly open as a person to any proposal that would do what the zoning ordinance asks for, and that is to change the zoning. Right? However, I would like that. I'd like to see that process be a little bit more transparent. A lot more transparent.
Thank you, Mr. Page.
Yay! Yay!
Whether this would be enforced or whether it wouldn't be enforced, and the answer is you really don't know. It depends a lot on who's going to hear the case. Is that correct, Mr. Squires? Now, this circuit court that's handling this in the next 3 or 4 weeks, that person has the option of saying this petition is valid.
If we fight the lawsuit, if we pursue a lawsuit, excuse me, which is not a motion.
Right.
Okay.
Can I clarify something that Mr. Page said before we get too far along? A negotiated settlement to this, while it would be negotiated, that result, whether it be a plan unit development, a contract zoning, or a flat-out zone change, would not be opaque. It would be transparent because that result would have to go to our planning commission with a public hearing and a notice to the neighborhood association and adjacent property owners, as would any other zone change, where it would be debated as to whether or not that negotiated outcome was acceptable. If the planning commission voted to adopt that change and make that recommendation, that would come to the city commission, where there would be at least one other meeting like this, where that issue would be subject to open debate and public comment, and a vote like this body. So while it may, I mean, I just want to make sure that there's not a misunderstanding that the motion is worded. Ultimately, this will end up before the planning commission at a public hearing with all the stakeholders notified, so that they can comment on the results of that negotiated zone change.
It's not true.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman.
If.
no, that's fine.
Thank you.
My question is, I'm listening to the citizens of the city of Muskegon. They have spoken. The gentleman stated that it was 6,901 votes that the city of Muskegon want to see this area zoned. Although I respect the fact that as a business owner, Mr. Melching is a business owner. He wants to get his investment, but we do want to see some type of development on that part. Now, I'm looking at on the floor if we have option A, correct? Okay. So now, what are the chances, and this is for legal counsel, if we did turn down option A and then took it to court litigation, what are our chances of winning? I mean, do you see a very strong because the reason I'm asking is more or less looking like, okay, we're not listening to the public. We're kind of folding our legs, sitting down and not fighting.
Commissioner, I am always reluctant to try and predict outcomes of litigation. I'm particularly uncomfortable doing that in a public setting where the judge is potentially going to hear my answer.
I can respect that.
Can we request, can we request a last call for public comment? There are some people that were not able to get here at our factory deadline and might have some additional input that can be, sorry, I would request that you have a chance to put in their sheet and have this.
I'd like to take a few more minutes to discuss it amongst ourselves. This issue has been debated.
The reason I say that is because this information was provided to the public just as of yesterday. And so there, as I mentioned, there are some members who are joining us who just weren't able to get here in time to submit their paperwork.
As I take the Vice Mayor's point, and I understand from the point of limiting our exposure as well as, hopefully positioning ourselves for a negotiated settlement. But from the beginning, I've looked at and still gravitate towards option C, which is the city litigating and then encouraging the proponents of the initiatory petition to join in the litigation. I think that gives an opportunity to take us through a clear legal process, which then, binds all parties. I think it would end up lending a level of clarity and finality where then we can move on. That's my gut feeling on that one. I've discussed it, briefly with the Vice Mayor. I've gravitated to that position. That's probably where I am right at this point. I still think that that's the option that I'm purchasing, as well as last night when I asked counsel if down the road Sappi could come in on the process at some juncture. I think that gives an opportunity then for all parties to have the issue addressed to them and deal with multiple issues. Like that.
Well, and then another option that's thrown out there is.
Could you speak louder?
Yeah.
Sorry.
We can't hear any of you.
I don't know, the mics are on. So the option was presented of a suggested to append A to A, meaning directing staff to begin zoning change processes internally. Should we go with A option? So my then question would be, that doesn't provide us with any type of agreement negotiation instead. It doesn't really give us a timeline that gives us what we'll negotiate and negotiate until when. And so my question is, I feel that we need a timeline that we can all be held accountable to, and as well Mr. Melching. And I know that he has been participatory in many conversations with both interested parties of the public as well as the city. But since I've been here, he has not been nowhere to be found. I've never met the man. And I just feel that if he is truly going to be a partner in this, he needs to be held accountable in a way that we can keep track of. And I think that having a timeline, whether it's specified period of time, we initiate a zone change process. I'm just throwing out there that to me, a timeline is very important because I don't want this to drag on to eternity.
Yay!
I know people, have their positions and their opinions of the man.
God, man, based on
Let's remember that first and foremost, the issue had been any of the environmental issues, and we all went full force into that. The DEQ has been very engaged and remains engaged. And I believe that those environmental issues are being heavily addressed. Now, as far as what people want to see, as far as what people think we should have done in 2009, again, when it comes to, whether or not the legal non-conforming use, remains and the existing use of heavy industry, could go on regardless.
I think that's the case forever, though.
Right.
Regardless
And that would be
of what
the case
happens,
forever.
regardless of the zone change.
But I think that Mr. Melching in his own manner, had been forthcoming from the beginning, even making outreach
bullshit.
to, neighborhood association and but
That's just a lie.
too, and I think this gets lost. I know what the public wants, all right? But we're talking about a property owner, just like many property owners out here. And just like a property owner last night said, gee, whatever you do, I hope it doesn't turn it around where somebody could just come in and want to rezone my property because it's on the lake and put up a high-rise resort.
That's ludicrous.
Property rights are involved here, and I think that gets lost regardless.
You're lost.
And we have to be cognizant of that as well. And now we have a lawsuit.
Nice going.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. One of the things that has really frustrated me about this whole process is, I think, an unrealistic expectation on how long these kind of large development projects take. When Mr. Melching took title to that property, whether it was him or any other owner, best case scenario in my mind, based on experience with other projects, not just here, but around the state that I've kept tabs on, so I can learn more about these issues over the years. I was assuming that best case scenario, this was a 3 to 5 year window before the property would be ready for somebody to turn the first shovelful of dirt on a new development. I look at it, it took nearly 2 years to demolish the mall. This is a more complicated project than demolishing the mall, which of course is not being actually demolished, it's being recycled, which actually is a green thing. There's probably at least another year worth of demolition to go before the site's clear. The DEQ has told us that they've got probably 2 years worth of work before they sign off on closing out their issues. So that means we're looking at probably at least another year of demolition and another year after that before the site is actually available for any new project to be put on it. I agree that an open-ended time frame is inappropriate, but I do think that we need, and members of the public need to understand, that we're talking years with large issues like this, with a huge factory and a large piece of property. We're not talking about weeks or months. And I think that's contributed to the level of frustration that people have felt, because the process does move slowly because of those issues. We heard that again last night where people were saying, well, it's an eyesore. Well, it's going to be an eyesore for a while. It just takes a certain amount of time to take down something that big and that complex in a responsible way. And unfortunately, just like with the mall, with the folks downtown, while that's going through that process, it's unsightly and unpleasant to be around. But we have to get through that process in order to move forward. And so one of the things that I hope is that if we make sure that any litigation is reasonably short, we're not delaying that process, that we can, the message has certainly been received here on this dais. I think Mr. Melching, being an intelligent man, has heard that message as well. And that, before that property is ready for what comes next, that we will certainly have something before the Planning Commission for public scrutiny and for approval on that body, and whoever may be on this body at that point.
So in the interest of potential, I don't want to call it acceleration, is there a benefit to the litigation because then is there some type of level of certainty that could be achieved for approvals? And says this is what it's all about, this is what we're looking at, and get us in a position to move beyond the litigation afterwards with a clear ruling as to what's before us.
If the court were to rule that the administrative petition is binding, we will change to the waterfront rate. Yep. No reason for a planning commission, no reason for this body to vote. That would be the court's order. On the flip side, if the court would rule that if this is not a proper means of amending the zoning ordinance, then staff and planning commission and city commission will be back in the process of looking at possible rezoning options.
Commissioners, any further discussion?
I guess this one last question. We know that a negotiated settlement can take probably weeks or longer. Best estimate on your experience.
Can I clarify your question? A negotiated settlement relative to a zone change?
Yeah.
Okay.
We know that probably much longer than that. I'm sure to actually do the zone change, we might be able to dispose of the lawsuit, but the zone change itself is probably going to take quite a bit longer. So we don't have, at least, I think there's probably an idea of what that time frame might be. If we went through proposal C, has been discussed, what is a reasonable expectation on when we might have a court ruling?
I've indicated that I would expect we would be able to, that we would have a decision from the court probably late spring, early summer. And I say that based upon, I do not think this is a case that will require any types of typical discovery types of things, depositions, interrogatory questions, written questions, etc. I would expect that this issue could be brought before the court, excuse me, relatively soon, and I would expect that the court would be able to rule late spring, early summer.
So, okay, 3 to 6 months, a little longer.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The other benefit I see to see is that we're faced with this initiative. This may not be the only initiative that this body or future bodies face. I think we get a reasonable reading of the legal reality. Be in a position to know what we're dealing with down the road. Yeah. My 2 cents.
It seems to me we're heading to consensus, and of course, having a motion on the floor is important because what else are you talking about unless you have a motion? So, seeing where we're moving, I would withdraw my motion. I would withdraw the second. I would move that we pursue option C, which would be to litigate this matter and invite interested parties to file amicus briefs if they choose. Intervention, I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Markowski, to choose option C to litigate the issue. The city would encourage the proponents of the initiatory petition to join litigation. Is there any discussion?
My discussion would simply be that I think at all points when you're moving forward, we need to make sure that we are informing Mr. Melching and anybody who's working with him that our desires as the city, as I assume most of the citizenry, is to have a piece of property that we can all work with, himself as well as citizens, and that we are very interested in mediation at any point in time.
Any further comments or questions? Roll call.
Commissioner Markowski?
Yes?
Mayor Gilman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sotero?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Hey!
Item H, senior transit. Last night, we had a long discussion regarding the senior transit in lieu of the history of its being eliminated, going over the city finances last night, coming up with potential options to go on down the road. But that being said, in order for further discussion, you have a motion.
Yes, I do. I would move to extend the transportation service to the fiscal year 2012-2013, ending in June of 2013.
It has been moved by Commissioner Turnquist and seconded by Commissioner German to extend and fund the senior transit program for fiscal year 2012-2013, and the program ending the end of the fiscal year. Discussion.
All right. Some things you just don't get the answers by looking at the numbers. I think we've been very fortunate as a city this year. We approved a budget for 2012-2013 that included a $575,000 draw from our reserve fund. Through the fine efforts of the city department heads, people in this room, our most recent projection on that is it's going to be $214,000 and not $575,000. And again, maybe not as strongly as the rezoning, but the senior citizens did vote for it. The citizens voted for it, not by, maybe 52, 53, 54% majority. But this is something not necessarily from the head, sometimes from the heart. Heard all the arguments that lose this, lose that, nobody else does it. Well, if we do it, that makes us a little bit special, a little bit better than other cities. And I think this is something that is not going to hurt us.
But we'll end in June of this coming year.
Unless some people come forward or we've talked and heard some talk about fundraising, but yes, it would end in June 2013.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. One of the most difficult parts of representing the people of the Third Ward over the last 13 years is the fact that after, really almost from the get-go, the state economy took a dive starting in 2000, right when I was getting elected. And our revenue stream started to shrink by 2002. I've only been on the commission one budget year where we actually had a surplus of revenue based on the beginning of the year projection. We have been in balanced budgets and surplus budgets because of very strict financial discipline and painful cuts. Every program that we have had was important to somebody. Whether it was the grants we used to be able to provide to the Little League that we had to cut, the support we used to provide to maintain the road commission's property at the causeway that we could not afford to maintain anymore, and then had to alter that agreement to fix our revenue, changing the contract with the arena to fix our loss or face closing the arena entirely, eliminating directly operating the basketball program or maintaining the lifeguards at the beach or the park rangers or the summer adventure program, which I know generates, and many people in this room may have fond memories of participating in that or similar city programs when they were kids. These were not easy decisions. Those programs did good things, and they were important to a lot of people. Right now, I see the budget. I looked over those numbers again last night, because we were told to sleep on things to make these decisions today. And I see that we have a $215,000 projected budget shortfall. That means we're spending $215,000 more than what we take in this year. I see that our income tax money year over year is down not quite 1 percentage point. I see that the state legislature just passed a bill that would eliminate the personal property tax and replace 80% of it. And the personal property tax makes up 20% of our general fund budget. I don't like those numbers. I get tired of talking about those numbers. Somebody last night mentioned they get tired of hearing those numbers. They're not nearly so tired of hearing those numbers as I am of looking at them and dealing with that reality, because it means I can't do fun things up here. It means I can't come up with some cool new initiative and have it funded. It means I can't do something good for a constituent who deserves it because it's a worthwhile program or initiative.
Seniors don't do it.
It means instead I'm looking at employees and saying, I'm sorry, there's not a job here for you at City Hall anymore. If you're lucky, this private company might be able to employ you. It means I look at employees and say, I'm sorry, you will no longer be able to retire with dignity like I will, because we can't afford to maintain a defined benefit pension anymore. We had to switch all our employees to a defined contribution pension system nearly a decade ago. It means I have to look constituents in the eye when I go out to neighborhood association meetings and say, I hear your frustration when your neighbor is not taking care of their property. I feel the same way. We have 3 people doing what 8 people used to do. I will make sure it gets on their work list. I don't like having to do that. But that's part of what I said I would be willing to do when I asked the people who live in the 3rd ward of this city to elect me to represent them on this body and speak on their behalf. I know this program benefits, at this point, 160 people, and for a full year costs nearly $80,000. So that's what was in the budget. I know that there are approximately 15 other transportation programs. None of them as convenient. Sure. Some of them have restrictions or fees that are more expensive. I understand that. I know that our drivers have been doing things that are outside what they're paid to do that exposes us to liability, and quite honestly, either we need to enforce our work rules or change our insurance, because it's a matter of time before we have an expensive liability disaster. And so when I look at this and say, okay, we might take another $30,000 or $40,000 out of our money that we are going to need to maintain basic services as we take this hit in our property tax, as we take this hit in our personal property tax, as we see relatively flat income tax dollars, and get through another 6 months, what then? What then? To me, it makes sense to be honest with people and say, this is not going to continue forward indefinitely. We said that there was 6 months. You know, people can say that they didn't understand. I accept that. But when I read those proposals, as the clerk provided us copies once again, Proposal 2 clearly said you have to vote yes on Proposal 3 for it to take effect. That seems pretty clear to me. So I cannot support this motion as it's worded. I think last night we had ample discussion to suggest some possible alternatives. And I will be willing to look at some of those possible alternatives. But I think it does not serve the people being served by this program. And I don't think it's financially responsible for us to say, this isn't an important amount of money. It is. $30,000 or $40,000 is a lot of money. In the context of our overall budget, you start making some decisions like that and you get into real trouble real fast. So I think we need to say, I'm sorry, we cannot continue the program as it's been. And then I would welcome discussion based on our conversation last night on some of the potential alternatives that may be available to people. And if there is funding available from us, something that would be sustainable going forward within our financial reality. Thank you, Ron.
Any other comment or input? Commissioner?
Just like to say, I'm in favor of supporting this. And I look at the dollars that we spend on equipment, things that make this city run efficiently. And although I do agree with the Vice Mayor, there are some budget constraints, and we need to really be cognitive of what we're dealing with. And I respect the fact that the citizens came out to voice their opinions and vote on a proposal to get a bill to support this transit service. Just over the last few months, I've had several phone calls. I've seen senior citizens come in this commission meeting on walkers, voicing their opinions and expressing how important this service is to them. And I know we have the funding, and yes, we're looking, and projecting and forecasting what may happen, later down the line. But, we have a now situation where we can actually help our senior citizens. And I think we should take the courage and fortitude to do this right now.
Yeah.
And looking at all these citizens, all these senior citizens are asking for just a little help. I mean, to get to the store, to get make groceries, to get to their doctor's appointments, to pick up their prescription drugs, and to get them through 2013 this winter. We have no idea what this winter may be like. But on the flip side of that, when we have businesses, and then we're a business-friendly city, and a business come to this commission, and we give them tax incentive because they want help. Okay, what's wrong with giving our senior citizens help? Okay? So I feel and encourage my fellow commissioners to look at this and not let's play politics and hold these senior citizens hostage due to the fact that we're forecasting ahead. But let's look at the situation now. And if something comes up, later where we can't do this, maybe, there may be some service or some consolidation with, another, service that could help them. But I think we should stand and go forward and just go ahead and support this.
Thank you. Yes.
You brought up the point of, the tax abatements for business. Remember, we don't give them money. Okay, we're actually getting money, just at a reduced rate, so that we can hopefully pay for the programs that we do have. So you're talking about, projections, or you're talking about what may be. Well, we're already at what may be. We're already living in that. We're living in a deficit, spending this past year. And it hasn't been the first year either. And it's not a matter of politics. It's a matter of standing up for our fiduciary responsibility for all 39,000 citizens. And I went into it ad nauseum last night with, writing down what we have experienced, what we will be. But I respect your position. But by no means are the individuals who don't share the same opinion merely playing, politics and ignoring anybody. I disagree with you there. Commissioner Housekeeper, do you have it?
Mostly, I want to know where folks stand on their thoughts of what alternatives you might be able to provide. I certainly have noted that this is something that many residents are in need of. Okay, so that's frankly where I stand right now, that residents need access to transportation for non-medical reasons, and they need it in a somewhat timely manner, meaning that they don't have to schedule whether or not they're going to get groceries 3 weeks in advance. So that's where I am at the moment. What I'm looking to do is to see if we can possibly bridge the gap between our fiduciary needs and our citizen needs, and to see if there's any interest in altering the program, in changing the way that we fund it, or in doing something that might get us somewhere closer to where we want to be. So last night what I suggested is that we pursue an agreement with a company who's already in the business of providing those services. And I say that because I don't think we need to be in any more businesses than we need to be, because we need to be good at the businesses that we do. And we need to focus as much attention as we can on the services that we provide employees for. And so I'm asking if it's possible to alter this program, to see if we can use volunteers. I know that that's probably not going to be well received from the volunteer standpoint, whether or not we'll be able to sustain it. But that is an option that has been put on the table. Also possibly changing our timeline so that it is not an on-demand service, but that there is a longer window, so requiring at least 24 hours notice before folks can be picked up, and to get them ready to eventually, because I don't see the situation changing, but eventually go into another service. I think the possibility of changing our service in some means between now and June, and in between working on an agreement with someone who could take it over, would be an amenable solution, and I'm wondering what the rest of you think.
Well, we had taken much of that time discussing this, including those options and closing those windows and upping the fee, etc. Back during the budget process, probably you're coming in the commission. There's always that possibility. The only thing is with things being what they are, then how much are you willing to put this project, into staff hands at a point where our offices are strapped?
What I'm suggesting still does require funding. I mean, partnering with an organization is not just saying, here you do this. It is us creating a more grant-like system, but very similar to what we did with leisure services, which is we didn't have the capacity to staff the department. We didn't feel the need to provide a service to children. And, my son participated in that program this summer, and I found it to be very well run and something that was successful. And it might not have been the glory of what it used to be. He used to attend swim lessons that are no longer offered. But I think there is the capacity to change what we're doing and still provide a service. So I guess my suggestion would be that we direct staff to see if we can negotiate a lower rate with a business who's already doing the same thing we were doing and eliminate the duplication of services.
But at this point, what we need to do now is address the motion that's on the floor and the realities of if it passes as it is, it does end at the end of this fiscal year. Are we going to be continually back here revisiting it because of other reasons? Or do we call it an end? We said that it was going to be an end if the vote, failed. It
passed.
Of course, it's a good program, but it was determined last year that we couldn't, for the summer, that we couldn't maintain it. And I'm not so sure that we can afford the staff time at this juncture to give them another huge project. But that's just my reaction at this point. What's me?
Well, I certainly understand where you're coming from with that, but like Commissioner Markowski, I do think, particularly in light of, we did ask for some ideas to come, and one of the speakers who came before us last night did provide some information with a public-private partnership that in a fairly short period of time phases out the public funding part of that public-private partnership. And certainly the work that Commissioner Markowski has done to see if there are available local partners may make it worthwhile to explore that possibility in a time-limited way. And that I would rather see us, instead of just kicking the can down the road 6 months and then being here right again with whatever the numbers are at that time, that we perhaps vote this motion down and then direct staff to spend perhaps 6 weeks to 8 weeks to see if we can negotiate a public-private partnership at a reduced cost and bring that back to us and extend the program for that period of time so that we can have a handoff. If that's not what other people want to do. But I think, the issue is, do we do something like that now? Or do we do it 6 months from now? Because the fact is that we will be making cuts in our next budget. I don't think anybody who looks at those numbers and is being honest with themselves, no matter how courageous they may be, can look at that and say, we're not going to be making cuts. And so we might feel good doing the right thing right now. But the fact is, we're just increasing the amount of pain, and we're kicking the can down the road and spending money that we don't have to spend. We're taking it out of a finite resource that's going to disappear if we continue to spend deficit year after year. So I think there is an alternative here to help our seniors. I think Commissioner Markowski has a good idea, and I'd rather see us explore that, even knowing our staff are stretched, than just leave things as they are and be here right again with all the same arguments and all the same issues and even less money 6 months from now.
So who would we be negotiating? Is that the agency you were speaking about?
Well, at this point, it is a company, and I think should we pursue negotiations, I am willing certainly to put forward whatever time I can in assisting. And I think if we have something to offer, we may in fact get more partners. I know we've discussed it in the past, but I don't know that we've included for-profit companies in that discussion. And if we are business friendly, I think that when a business does a good job of what it has started, that we should be willing to work with that business and not only focus on the charitable organizations, which in addition do great work. But if someone has done something well, then I think they are the ones that should be doing it, and we shouldn't try to duplicate what they have in place. understand what I'm saying?
If you don't mind, just a couple things. The programs that were mentioned earlier, particularly regarding the leisure services, were with nonprofits for the most part. And we have had public-private partnerships as well. I think that if the staff is going to move in some direction, that the city commission guides us. A couple things that I think would be helpful is there was one company that was mentioned, but there are others, and I think that that needs to be considered. That if there's probably a likelihood that if there is money that is going to be put on the table to be provided to companies to provide a certain service, there's probably more than one company that would like to have an opportunity. And so I think that's something you should consider. And then I think you also need to consider how much money you're willing to provide to a private entity to assist. And I think that's going to partially be determined by the type of service, certainly, that they provide. But I would guess that you're going to want to provide a lesser amount than what you currently spend. Otherwise, you could continue the current program.
And I wouldn't frankly be making a suggestion if I didn't make the assumption that we could have that partnership at a lesser expense. So I would support the idea. Well, frankly, I think that if a company is already in business, already providing similar services, their costs are not going to be what our costs are. They don't have to necessarily hire much more staff. They may, but they may not have the business currently, and they could use that business to supplement what they already have. In addition, they're already paying insurance. They already have vehicles. They already have administration. So I propose that we would create an RFP and see what type of funding it would require for them to expand their services at a lower rate within the city of Muskegon for our residents.
And also, we also have to understand that maybe that wouldn't work out.
And I understand it's a possibility.
And where's that money going to come from? Right now, out of general operating funds, or other areas which are already taking hits, like community block development grants, where at least half of the funding used to come from district area, stuff like that. Those are the type of directives. We're still talking about pots of money, if you put it in that term, which are shrinking.
And I, just like everyone else, I don't like that. I understand that it is troublesome and it creates problems down the road. I think if we have the opportunity to have less debt than more, then we are better off than we were. So I would suggest that we would be working with the same pot of money we are now, that we were previously pulling senior transit from. If you think that is not possible, please let me know. But that's where I would start at this point. And I would also suggest that when we go through our strategic planning session, that we take a look at how we divide our services and where we should place those budgets. As I mentioned, I'm not sure that we should have specific pots of money towards one particular service, but that if we provide any type of grant programming, that those should be under an umbrella. And so that as these things come up, we can determine how much funding we have available towards them.
Which would you like, community block development grants, which is probably the only kind of grant out of. So we have a motion to deal with it.
Those are good ideas and that we can actually work with. And it seems that when we talk about this, we get a little abstract. And I think we need to stay on task and look at that these senior citizens are coming to the city commission meeting here and they're looking for help and they want results. So I'm looking at this as a now situation, and now that we do have the funding to extend this, support this for, a half a year, June 2013, I would support that motion.
Yay.
About the budget last year that we talked about, and one of my main questions was, in this budget, will there be any cuts in the departments here? Would anyone lose their jobs? That answer was no. Okay, look what happened. Okay, we have inspectors that now have lost their job, and well, my understanding is privatized. So there's no guarantee, but we do have a situation here now that we can hold on, and with those services that we talked about, that ideal, we can work toward that for 2013, and hopefully by that time we have something in place. But in the meantime, these seniors will have the services that they need to get back and forth, to the doctors and to go buy groceries or whatever appointments that they have. So I think we need to pursue and look at what's on the floor right now. The motion on the floor is to support, and I encourage you all to look at this. And sometimes you have to cut against the grain. Sometimes you have to, regardless of what the situation looks like, money's going to be spent somehow, and we're in the middle of a litigation right now, possibly. So that money's going to go somewhere. Why not help our seniors?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or wait for a full commission to vote.
Exactly.
I do have a question, and that would be, there is also, I believe, the option for providing to amend his motion, which would be to direct staff towards an alternative solution for June. Because so far, my understanding from the motion is that he's suggesting that we put the funding forward and that we'll see what happens in June. And I don't necessarily think that's the prudent approach either, because it seems as though we're hoping that by June we'll just come to the same sentiment. And I think that prevents us from really focusing on what our budget numbers should be. So there would be the option of also amending that motion to include focusing on alternatives.
Yeah. Right.
Certainly they can be made as a motion if this passes or fails as well. Commissioner German, I don't normally address individuals directly on the commission like this, but you've said this a number of times tonight. We know what the money is coming from. We have a limited amount of money in our budget stabilization fund or in a rainy day fund. So this is not being cut from another program. This is coming out of that finite savings account. When it's gone, it's gone. And the rain is coming. We can see the squall line. It's here. We're already getting wet. So what we're talking about is, in essence, taking money out of that account for this. So it won't be available to pay for the lawyers for the lawsuit that we just are now engaged. It's not going to be available to maintain our police force next year. It's not available. We're spending it on this. And so this is not coming out of revenue. If we say no to this motion, that doesn't suddenly free up money. It means we're not taking money that we don't have and spending it on something. And, I hear a lot of folks out there commenting, and I try to show as much respect to the folks who are in the audience as possible, because you took time out of your day to get here. Some of you might have had trouble getting here, because I know senior transit doesn't operate at this time of night. The fact is that oftentimes when I hear seniors come up and talk to the city commission, it's explained to me in very real terms that I understand that as a senior citizen, you're on a fixed income. The city's not on a fixed income. The city's on a shrinking income. We don't have as much money this year as we did last year. We don't have as much money as we did last year as the year before, or the year before that, or the year before that. And that's not me making things up. That's available to anybody who wants to go to the clerk's office and pick up our year-to-year audits, or look on our website where all those audits are available. That's just a harsh reality. And I'm sorry that people don't want to believe that. But that's just the way it is. And we can see around us in places like Benton Harbor and the Muskegon Heights Public Schools and Highland Park, of course, and other communities around this state where people in our positions didn't look you in the eye and say, I'm sorry, this is something there's not money to do anymore.
That's the truth.
Thank you, Ron.
Commissioner?
I'm not going to remember, but another part of my thinking, and this is something I've tried to bring with me, is that I was appointed and I was not elected, and I understand that is something that people might feel that they didn't choose me to be up here. But my perspective has been that I'm trying to look at every problem that is thrown up here as an opportunity. And I think that having to choose another option gives us the opportunity to create partners, because I think that every senior in Muskegon County should have the same opportunities that we're trying to get for our state residents. And I think that this gives us the option to create something that we can work with our neighboring communities on and create a better solution.
I want to remind commissioners as well, though, when this was slated for cancellation program, we went through and made contact with alternate agencies, and of course, the main concern that was cited by individuals that had come up with testimonial is that they were not as convenient. We did not need people. Here are the alternatives. They are available. The main issue was it's not as convenient. The other main issue was that we were so convenient due to the fact that by their own testimonials we find that our employees were working outside of work rules, doing more than what they were supposed to be, opening us to, and citizens to potential liability. But remember, we didn't just do this to make people hang. All right. Anyway, we have a motion on the floor. I have three.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
I
can
have-
I speak before you vote on it?
I was just getting that, Ms. Fish. I have three individuals I will allow to address as they put in their request to speak. You are each held to 3 minutes. Please keep your comments specifically to the transportation issue. And if an individual touches on the same points and you think they have been expressed, then perhaps you consider that you have had your point made as well. But Ms. Fish, if you would please come up, give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
What a creep.
I may need a little bit more time. My name is Ann Fish. I live at 1213 Westdale Avenue, Apartment 1. I own my house, and what I heard that went on in your work meeting horrified me, because the lack of respect, empathy, and sympathy for those of us who have worked so hard all our lives. And I know what hard work is. I milked a herd of cows every day from the time I was 11, 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. Picked tomatoes in 100-degree weather. I was not raised with riches. And I'm on a limited income now, a lot of which goes to help other people. And I do have multiple handicaps. And I challenge any of you to have 29 needles put into your eyes And when I get them, I get one in each eye, and my eyes are numbed and dilated. And you say that the senior transit drivers are doing more than they should do. They're doing the right thing by coming in and getting me out of there, because I cannot see my hand in front of my face. They're doing the right thing in getting me into my house safely so that I don't fall down my basement steps. They are not doing more than they should. They're doing what they need to do to keep us safe. And I think it's very bad. I came up in a very hard life. I've worked hard all my life. My mother was a full-blooded Semite, and my father was a full-blooded Aryan, and which is a really weird combination. And when half of her family was exterminated by Hitler, she went insane and became a drug addict. And living with a drug addict, you never know where the other shoe is going to fly. And after I milked the cows, I would have to take her tray up to her before I got breakfast for my brother and me, and packed her lunches, and I'd have to take a tray up to her so she could put her feet on the floor.
Ms. Fish?
Yes.
You have 1 minute, and I have to draw you back specifically to the transportation, please.
Well, I know that there are other seniors who have gone through some tragic living. And there are more coming. You are among them. If you don't have any family living near you, and you become incapacitated, unable to drive, unable to see to put your own hearing aid batteries in, unable to see the labels in on the food in the grocery stores, the food that you need to eat to survive. And I have been fighting. You say, oh, go to an assisted living. I am fighting for my dignity and my independence, as are many of us who are older. We need this dignity. We need this independence.
Thank you, Ms. Fish. I'm going to have to thank you at this point for your statements. We do have, in the interest of allowing the other individuals time to speak as well, and we've appreciated your sharing with us on the last two occasions that you joined us. I'm going to call up other individuals.
I'm still astounded that there are 2 empty chairs there.
Can I make a quick point while we wait for our next speaker?
Yeah.
When I was making phone calls regarding options, I did not get through all of them. But one of them that I made was to a program just down the street, and it's called Senior Companions. And it is not a home health service where someone comes and lives with you or is there all the time, but it is specifically for people who are in your position. It's a service that's provided free of charge, and it's someone who is able to come and assist you with simple things like grocery shopping, or when you maybe just need some help around the house and need someone to support you. You mentioned that you don't have family available to you. So I just want to let you know that there are some local programs that will fit more of the needs than the program that we currently offer. So I'm suggesting that you contact them, and I'm happy to provide you with their phone number. But that service is available to you free of charge. It's just down the street.
Mr. David Kurtz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is David Kurtz. I reside at 3640 Fulton. I witnessed many of these meetings, and one of the things that struck me at the last commission meeting is what Commissioner Turnquist said, simply do the right thing. I'm in support of the Muskegon seniors. They want their transit to continue. This is a diverse group. But before I provide some of my comments, I also must say that I'm a senior transit driver. I do have an interest, obviously, to protect my part-time job, as of the other 4 people who work in senior transit. We're being kicked to the curb, and that's certainly not mentioned. But that's not the important part. The important part, I'll survive this. These seniors won't. I'd like to read an excerpt from the editorial I read on, a couple excerpts from editorials I read on Sunday in the Muskegon Chronicle. And it kind of gets to the issue. In bold print, it simply said, city officials need to follow voters. This editorial intelligently speaks to the issue. A few more comments regarding that. The people of Muskegon clearly wanted senior citizen transit to receive funding. I continue, Muskegon City Commission should listen to the intent of the voters and act accordingly. They continue, we urge commissioners to adopt a compromise proposed by Byron Turnquist to continue until June 30th, and I applaud him, Mr. German. The Chronicle continued, the last quote from the Chronicle is, voters in November clearly were willing to pay extra taxes to maintain the program, while legal issues are at hand. I must briefly touch on Proposal 2 and 3. You heard it over and over again. Clearly, 2 passed with 6,278 votes for. Proposal 3, of those 6,278 votes, 3,576 voted against it. They clearly didn't understand it. And to criticize the voters for not understanding is absurd. You know, I could go into some other things, but democracy is sacred. Our right to vote is sacred. We hold voting in the highest esteem. We are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I should again say, for the people. I plead with this commission to honor the request of the voters and find a way to do this. I'm also more than happy to work with any of the staff members in my free time to try to come up with a compromise, but we need time. It needs to be extended. We need to go along with what Mr. Turnquist says. I'll devote my time to help find a solution to this, but nobody to this day has really done much because we don't have any answers. Let's work at this. Let's help these people. And in closing, I would like to thank Mr. Turnquist again. You people need to do the right thing. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey.
Last name, Janet Nelson, please.
My name is Janet Nelson, and I live at 973 West Larch Avenue. First of all, Mr. German, thank you as a senior citizen. Mr. Turnquist, thank you as a senior citizen. And Leah, you were mentioning to the rest of the council about getting involved with another group, a private group that would, where you could get the funding and it wouldn't cost us as much to ride. Before all this mess ever started, we were paying $3 round trip, which is $1.50 one way. Then, when we found out, and it was at a city commission meeting down here that I happened to attend, that it was going to go up to $2 round trip, and it ended up going around to $3. Or no, $3 one way, so it's $6 round trip. That's what I pay right now. Every time I use the senior transit service. That does not include my $20 a month bus pass that I also buy and I also use. And Mr. Spataro, yes, I'm on a limited budget, which you, like you're on a limited funding budget. Only mine, just like yours, is going down the tubes every frickin' month. Because prices for food are going up. My healthcare costs are going up. Now my senior transit's gone up. And the bus now, which I used to be able to buy a month bus pass for $5 or $6, is now costing me $20. So I have to learn how I have to budget my money. And to help with the senior transit is the one that told us, and this has been going on since June. I have been paying $6 every time I get into the senior transit.
You have 1 minute, Mr.
I don't know what I'm going to do without senior transit except ride the bus and take my chances on getting hit crossing 4 lanes of a road. I can't go to my dentist because the bus doesn't go out that way. It doesn't go that far. And if it does, I still take the chance running across the street and getting hit on 4 lanes of traffic. I don't want to take that risk, but I'm not going to have any choice because I can't afford the so-called cheap bumblebee service for $1.25 or $1.15 when you put 1 cheek in. And I can't afford Port City Cab because the last time I checked that out, that was close to $5. Bingo the minute you get in it. I mean, there's nothing. If you could get something from out there and bring it into here. And by the way, Leah, senior transit. Now, like, I have to go away tomorrow. So I called them at 8 o'clock
Ms.
this
Nelson, I have
morning
to
for
have
an
you.
appointment for tomorrow.
Ms. Nelson, I have to have you wrap up.
So I just wanted you to know that there's at least a day in advance notice. That's all you have to give senior transit to get picked up. So on that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson.
I just want to point out to people out in the audience, regardless of how this vote goes, that if, like me, your medical appointments are scheduled in advance, and most of them are, there are several services that come to the city of Muskegon that do provide free or limited cost transit for medical appointments. And that requires advance notice, but again, most people don't have an emergency trip to the dentist. That may come up once in a while. Normally, these kinds of things are scheduled in advance, and there's ample opportunity to meet the advance notice requirements for those services. So regardless of what happens with senior transit, there are services for what has been described by 2 of the 3 individuals indicating access to medical appointments that is available, and in some cases would be, well, the ones that are free of charge obviously would be less expensive than what you're paying for senior transit right now.
And we did make those options available last spring or beginning of summer when we had sent out notification to all our users at that time. Commissioners, we have a motion before us. If there's no more comment or discussion, then I'll ask for the roll call.
I'd just like to say one other thing.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your comments and your concerns. I just want to say I respect the fact that these senior citizens came out and exercised their right to vote to get this service. I mean, the law-abiding citizens and taxpayers, I said they deserve help like we've helped other businesses and entities. Maybe just a temporary time span of 6 months until something is put in place. And again, I'd just like to reiterate, I'd just like to urge the commissioners to look at this. And to me, you know, and this is just my philosophy on this, you know, it seems like we're playing politics, you know, and I'm just be blunt about it. I mean, it may not be the popular vote to do right now, but it's the moral and the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think by going ahead and supporting this motion and passing this vote so these seniors can have this service will be a great benefit to the city of Muskegon seniors. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Goldman?
No?
Vice Mayor Spataro?
No.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yes.
Commissioner Markowski?
No?
Motion fails.
I would like to make a motion that we request staff to draft the request for proposal requesting services such as provided by senior transit for a projected users of 150 to 175 to a similar cost as what is being provided currently for round trip prices within the city of Muskegon.
I'll second that motion.
It has been moved by Commissioner Markowski and seconded by the Vice Mayor to have staff put out a request for proposals for a comparable senior transit program reflective of our current costs. Is that right?
Or similar to.
Or similar to, and
Cost of the riders.
Right, cost to the riders.
cost of the rider. And servicing
Within the city of Muskegon.
within the city of Muskegon. Any discussion or comments?
I think just going to add to that, I make that motion because there was a vote, and a majority of people who wanted to support funding. And we are certainly in a projected deficit. However, when people are residents and pay taxes, they don't always realize the benefit of the services they're getting. This is one benefit that residents are clearly aware is something that they see on the ground and they want to continue in some manner. And so I think we can get it at a cheaper rate and more of a benefit to everyone.
The current program does end at the end of this month. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Spataro?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
What was the motion again?
This is to have staff put out a request for proposals for potential services for senior transit to reflect our current user rates and to serve seniors within the city of Muskegon.
Another agency, you said?
Another agency. A request for proposal to a private or public
I have spoken with at least one business who I think is suitable, but I'm certainly open to anyone who willing to provide that service.
She brought out last
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yes.
Commissioner Markowski?
Yes.
Mayor Goldman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Is there any other business from the commission?
I'd just like to ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
My one hearing aid is dead and I'm waiting for someone to put that over in. What did you just vote for? I'm only hearing half of it.
The senior transit program is ended at the end of this month. We are then putting out a request for proposals to other agencies, public or private, that could potentially develop a program to provide services comparable to what the city had been providing within the city of Muskegon.
You mean you were going to let senior transit continue?
No,
No,
it has ended, as at the end of the month.
There are some of you on this, in this
Ms.
group
Fish?
who have empathy.
Ms. Fish, if you want to address this, you can go to the podium. But you have 3 minutes.
Hey, I want to do it.
I have a question.
I have
Okay, Ms. Fish,
recognized
go
Ms.
ahead.
Fish. And then,
Be my guest.
Thank you. There are some of you on this commission who respect their elders. In European countries and most Eastern countries outside of the communist ones, the elderly are cared for by law. And there are some of you here who have the empathy for their elders and the respect, and the rest of you have the respect, empathy, and sympathy of a soap dish.
thank you, Ms.
And I
Fish.
thank you for listening to me.
I don't think anybody should make any assumption that any of us up here do not have the empathy or to love our elders, because you don't know the life we've experienced or the life we've lived or the people we have had in our lives. And I wasn't going to respond, but that hits because when I recall walking my own beloved elders through death on numerous occasions, bathing them, feeding them, going out in the middle of the night, my brother and I taking days off to run an aged uncle to doctor's appointments, or just to get out in the fresh air to see where he used to hunt, to walk my own father through the same thing, to carry him up the steps literally like a baby. Make no assumptions about the level of the empathy or the sympathy or the experience of anyone up here. For there's many tears and many lonely nights after we've seen these beloved people pass out of our lives who we spent much time with, caring for, almost to the level that I would have cared for my soon-to-be 18-year-old when he was a newborn. That's enough said on my part. No.
He gets to do all the
I'll
talking.
take no more. Sir, and on what topic?
Actually, this would be something related to consumers' energy, and I read your form. Perhaps it's not allowed. I want to make sure that I comply with your rules. If you've got a moment, I'd like to explain something. Thank you.
So you're not going to let this in your phone?
No, this is related to meters. My name is Dennis McKee, and I am the new communications coordinator for Consumers Energy's Smart Energy Program. And I came here to drop off some brochures and to show you what a smart meter looks like, just to let you know that smart meters are being installed throughout the city and the purpose of those installations. The purpose is that the smart meters now will contact us in the event that there's a power outage. If there's a tree that falls on a wire, right now we still wait for an individual to contact us to let us know that an individual is out of power. With the installation of these meters, the meter will contact us. It will send us essentially a text message letting us know when an individual is out of power, so that when we get just a single call from an individual, we'll actually already know that there may be 20 people who would be out in that area, and we can send out repair crews accordingly. So we'll be more efficient in our ability to restore power. There will be other benefits of these meters as well. Next summer, we'll go live with a computer portal where people will actually be able to go on a secure computer site and identify the use that they use at their home, plug in a bit of data about themselves, and compare their consumption with other folks in similar circumstances, similar size houses, and so forth in a similar area.
Make my coffee?
It won't make your coffee, but it is pretty cool.
It's very dangerous for people.
And it's
Kills
not,
the bee,
it's not,
it hurts the bee.
Let them do is hustle. Let them hustle the crowd.
well, this is, so this is,
consumers.
this is, and in the brochures there are some myths about meters, radio frequencies, and so forth. And some of those issues are being addressed in this brochure. I wanted to invite you folks to let me know in the event that you have homeowners associations or other folks you'd like me to speak with about our program. We're proud of this program. There are 1.8
Morgenstern's been out to all the neighborhood associations.
million customers, in the state, and we want to make sure that we provide opportunities. I am the new Roger for this particular program. Roger has gone on to do other things. And some of you know me from my days as public affairs director for the Cobb plant. I've done a number of other things as well. I'm very happy to be part of this program. So I invite you to contact me if you've got any questions for you and your constituents, and I'll leave these brochures with you, okay?
I've got one of
Yep.
We did have a PowerPoint presentation before, so the commission, I think, is pretty well versed.
Great. We're getting through Muskegon County. Just wanted to touch base and create an opportunity for you folks to ask some questions if you've got any related to this stage of the program. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so
More
much.
name.
Now that I've regained my composure, if you'd like to make the final comment, please feel free.
Wow. Leah, you had mentioned about contacting somebody else to take over what currently senior transit does. Where are you going to get that funding from then?
They're not gonna.
If you're looking for me to respond, I'm not saying that I'm not willing to provide funding for something. I'm saying that if we have an opportunity to reduce our costs, that is the path that I've chosen to take.
Well, I don't see why your source couldn't possibly work with senior transit. Could they?
At this time, that's not an option, but we're certainly going to see what happens with the proposals that we're going to hopefully garner.
Okay. And it is my understanding that as of December 31st, senior transit is no longer.
That's correct.
You guys won.
Thank you.
They win.
I'll take one more public comment. And then we'll
Oh, gracious.
Roger. Sure. Yeah. Last minute.
I gotta go outside. I gotta have a cigarette on that one.
Hello everyone. Sorry if I'm a little slap happy. It's been kind of a long meeting. My name is Joshua Croft. I am a resident of 2135 Latark. I had a hard time remembering that. And I'm sure that you guys have had a roller coaster of an evening and probably don't want to hear another thing on the subject of the Sappi zoning, but I guess I have to say that I was a little disappointed to hear that we're going to go ahead and move forward and litigate the case, but upon sitting here and mulling it over, and it might be for the best, but I do believe that the ballot initiative, you know, we talk about transparency here and things like that, but you know, if we take a look at from my perspective, I think that the ballot initiative completely lacks, you know, bypasses, you know, public evaluation and a comment period that would be typically allowed during, you know, an introduced method by the staff or by Melching himself. You know, I don't believe that the language of the zoning was, you know, presented to the voters so that they can actually make an informed decision. They just saw on the ballot waterfront marine. You know, I believe that waterfront marine lacks flexibility and, you know, best management practices that would allow us to protect from future contamination of the site. And overall, I believe that it creates a rift between a major property owner in the city and the city which could prevent future collaboration and cooperation. So, I guess that probably wasn't said as eloquently as I was hoping, as I'm exhausted and had a long day at work myself. But I guess I support. I would have supported a negotiation, as Spataro had brought up, and I hope moving forward that the vote illustrates that the public does want to see, and as do I, want to see the public interest kept in mind, and I also want to see the property cleaned up and rezoned in a process that is legal. And so that's all that I have to say, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Roger, did you want to make a statement?
I don't heckle you when you're up there.
Just wanted to mention a few things about senior transportation being a public safety issue. For the next 20 years, the number of older Americans will double. Seniors will make up a larger portion of the population than before in U.S. history. Seniors rely on private automobile as their primary mode of transportation out of preference and necessity. Residential patterns and years of low-density development or sprawl exacerbate the problem. Without acceptable alternatives, many seniors continue to drive themselves, even as their capacity to do so diminishes. Despite their efforts to self-regulate their driving, their safety remains at risk. Most seniors lead active lives and are reluctant to give up the freedom and convenience of driving. Their fears of isolation and lack of independence are warranted. Older people who continue to drive face the highest fatal crash rate of any group. The gap between driving expectancy and overall life expectancy means that today's baby boomers can anticipate being dependent on others to meet their transportation needs for an average of 6 to 10 years. The senior mobility problem is one that impacts not just seniors, but their families. The number of families providing care for aging relatives is increasing, a trend that affects adult children and their employers. And that's all I really have to say. Senior transportation is a public safety problem. We will keep a body count if senior transportation is discontinued and we believe that people are having falls or being run over as a result of the end of the senior transportation program and the benighted practices about snow removal in this town. And we will read the name of every single person who dies or is seriously injured as a result of this. Thank you.
Hey, Roger.
Mr. Mayor, before Mr. Nye leaves, I have a question for Mr. Nye.
Yes.
So that people can hear you. Mr. Nye, you're a resident of the city of Norton Shores, correct?
That is correct.
Could you give us a brief report on your progress in getting a senior transit program implemented within the city of Norton Shores?
I have gone to a city meeting and I have suggested the ITN program.
And what was the response that you received?
They were not very receptive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Shanta Davy, 4380 Happy Point Lane, Norton Shores. I'm very emotional tonight, mostly about the senior transit. I feel emotional about the Sappi thing too, because I don't want to see the city in a suit. That's not the goal. I'm the old hippie who wants to be hard and humans and take care of all that. So I really hope we can come to something that that will benefit the city and with Sappi. But about the senior transit, I've been asked to. I wonder. It really. The will of the people is just being thwarted. The right to work thing today, 10,000, over 10,000, maybe even 15,000 people showing up. They voted their people in. They're not following their will. The 2 votes that we had here, and it's just even this little thing of waiting until there's a full commission to vote on the senior transit, because Eric had seconded that motion before. Sue Weiringo is working with one of the residents to try to get a fundraising thing happening for the future. So those two aren't here, and now this is pushed to. Do you see what it looks like? Do you see what it feels like to us? So, you know, I hope we can turn this around. I want to make Swati Abiyadi gave me, he is working also on a fundraiser to continue the senior transit program. He was hoping it could stay till the June so that we could have enough time to get money together. Monday, December 17th at the Lakeside Wesleyan Church on 1050 West Southern Avenue is a organizing fundraising meeting for the senior transit system at 6 p.m. So, you know, I don't know, I'll leave here with a heavy heart, and I also thank you for your service. I know this is not easy for you. I know it's hard decisions. But I will always continue to urge you to go with the people, go with people's vote, and go with the most loving answers. Don't let fear and division ruin this town.
Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? I'm very fortunate. I live with my daughter.
Say your name and address.
Joan Baki, 4380 Hackney Point Lane, Norton Shore. But I had a lot of things done, and I could not have gotten around or done anything if, and when I was in the home, then every once in a while I could call and they would come and take me home for an hour or so, which really was good. But when people can't get out and they can't do stuff because they're not well enough and they can't walk well enough and they could really get hurt, they really need that transit if they have to go to doctors and the other thing. It's so important. They have spent all their life doing for other people, and it's time that we honor these people that have done that, and you'll be in the same position someday. You know, maybe not, I hope not. Not everybody's going to be. But it's no fun. And I've been very fortunate, like I said, because I do have my daughter that does everything for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question of the speaker? Ma'am? Ma'am, could I ask you a question?
What?
Please go back to the guys there. As a resident of the city of Norton Shores, your daughter is unavailable. How do you manage your transportation?
I don't. She's always available for me.
And if she wasn't?
The GO bus.
The GO bus?
I took the GO bus before from the home, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have used the GO bus, and it was really great to be able to have that just to go home for an hour or two,
Okay.
you know, from the home. So it was great, but I don't have to go and do all my things like these two ladies do.
Because your daughter is able to assist
Yeah,
you.
and you know, and I really have empathy for them and want the best for them and hope that we can help her.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Remember, we do have 9 agencies available within the area that continue to provide services. I'll take one more comment. Ms. Bottom, then we'll call it a night.
My name is Martha Bottomley, and I live at 2337 Westwood in the city of Muskegon. And I just want to thank the commissioners and John and Brian and Ann for all the hard work tonight. And I know these have been really difficult issues for all of you to deal with, and it breaks my heart when people really criticize you because I do know how hard you all work. And I just wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas and say thank you on behalf of the citizens of Muskegon.
Thank you, Martha.
Ditto, I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. To all here, I know that we butt heads with emotions, attitudes, opinions, positions, but at the end of the day, may we all go out in this season, and I wish you all peace, and in the new year, may we all find renewal and more creative ways to come together to address the needs of this community above and beyond what we do here at this dais. So with that, have a blessed, happy holiday and holy days, and we'll see you in 2013. Commissioner Turnquist?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Merry Christmas.
Thank you for coming.
Did I have the extra one? I gave you.